It's car con carne. Let's eat in the car. It's car con carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
Welcome to Car con Carne. I'm James Van Alstyne, and for this very special episode, I'm joined by Brent Sopel. Brent is a retired professional hockey player. As a defenseman, he played professional hockey in the NHL, KHL, and AHL. In 2010, he won the Stanley Cup with the Chicago Blackhawks. Brent Sopel is dyslexic. He's also the founder of the Brent Sopel Foundation. And though he's known for playing professional hockey, he would like for his legacy to be that he did everything within his power to assist dyslexic children everywhere. This is another episode of the You Are Not Alone series, in partnership with the Brent Sopel Foundation. And our guest this week is actor Kenny Johnson. He's done a ton of stuff on TV and in film, and you can currently see him as a third-generation SWAT officer, Officer Dominique Luca, on the TV show S.W.A.T. To see this interview in its entirety, you can visit the Brent Sopel Foundation page on Facebook or at BrentSopelFoundation.org.
How did you go down that path? How did you come up with arm wrestling? He says, I was a great arm wrestler at 3 a.m. drunk in the bar. But besides that,
until you cross my path, man, I would love to that was the same guy who wrote this damn script. Yeah, believe it or not, dude, the guy wanted to be an actor so bad, and he was this yoked out trainer, and there were all these huge steroided out guys arm wrestling. And I just moved out here from going to college 3.5 years in Connecticut, going to Boston for about 3 months. And then I flew out here to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. So I got a job at a Jack LaLanne's, which is a health spa. And I was a nutritionalist there. So I was this, 175 kind of skinny kid behind the nutrition bar making drinks. And these big guys were arm wrestling. And it was like right before they were closing down. And they were like, 275, 300-pound guys just fucking going at it, right? And I'm watching them. And then also one guy dominated everyone. And he's like looking around and they're all adrenaled out, juiced out. And they're, what about you? What about you? And I'm like, and I never arm wrestled in my life. And I'm like 23. And I'm like, I said, dude, you're going to, I don't know. I've never arm wrestled. He goes, well, just effing try it. I'm like, but you're like twice my size, bro. He goes, just effing try it. And they started getting angry. So I just jumped over the bar, ran over. I thought I'll get my ass whooped. And I got adrenaled out. And as soon as they said go, I flashed them in about a half second, right? And everyone was looking like, what the hell is that, right? And I just thought, that was weird. Yeah. So, I got fast twitch muscles, right? So my friend saw it, and he didn't tell me, but he found out where the world championships were that year, right? This is so stupid. This is like so weird. So one Saturday, he goes, oh, yeah, I'm taking you somewhere for a surprise. I'm like, okay. So we get in the car. We just drive hours and hours and hours. And I'm like, where are we going? He goes, it's a surprise. And I'm like, so we come up on the Civic Center after so many hours of driving, and they have world championships out in California at this particular place. And, or they did back then. And we pull up and there's tons of cars. And I'm like, whoa, we're going to a concert. I'm like, I've never been to a concert. This is going to be really cool. So we get there and I'm like, well, who are we going to see? He goes, not anybody. I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, I signed you up for the world championships arm wrestling. I go, you did what? He goes, I signed you up for the world. I said, bro, I've never arm wrestled in my life. He goes, yeah, but you beat that guy. I go, that's one guy. I go, I don't even know if I'm any good or not. He goes, well, you're never going to know until you try. And I'm like going, oh my God, So of course, at the same time I was working the juice bar, I was with an agency modeling, right? So I go to this is so stupid. I'm in this little mesh cut off shirt, right? With these white freaking tight jeans on. And I sign up and they're like, where are you from? And I just put Hollywood, even though I didn't live in Hollywood. They go, what do you do? I go model and they whatever. So I fill it out and then I get up there and they have weight classes. I weighed in and then, they're going, okay, next class, blah, 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 to like 189. And they go next to the table from Hollywood, California, model Kenny Johnson. And everyone started booing and yelling. And I'm in the wings and I hadn't come out yet. And I'm like, fuck no. I said, I'm not going out there. They go, you got to go. I go, I'm not going out there, dude. Everyone's whistling and booing. And I'm like, I can't even believe that lady introduced me like that. I'm going, this is so messed up. And they're like, you have 60 seconds and they count down. And the more they booed and the more they started calling me like, you know, names that were kind of like bad, you know, whatever, you know. So I just, I thought as a 10, 9, I thought, you know what, F this, man. So I just darted out to the table. I just sat up and they're like, you know, put me up. They, you know, explained the rules, held the bar, and they said, go. And I slammed the guy, walked out. Every time there were whistles or like this, you're like that, kill the model. And I thought, this is so effing embarrassing. So it's a double elimination. I went against a guy that I was like this far from beating, held him there for about 3 minutes, and I got tired, eventually lost. So I thought, okay, I'm in the loser's bracket. Won a few more times, and then I go against someone else, and I have him about a half inch from being pinned, and I'm, you know, maybe 2-3 minutes, and I couldn't quite get him down. I got tired, so I lost. So I'm like, okay, see, I suck. You know, I'm out of the thing. There's nothing. So this guy comes over that I had beaten, and he says, listen, mate, he says, have you ever arm wrestled before? And I go, no. He goes, well, he says, you beat me, and I'm the Australian champion. And he goes, you know those 2 guys you lost to? I go, yeah. They go, one of them was the number 2 guy in the world, and the other one was number 5 guy in the world. And you were this close to pinning them. They go, and you've never arm wrestled? I go, no. And he said, let me train with you. So he ended up being Heath Ledger's uncle. So Heath Ledger's uncle trained me every year to get me ready for the championships. And it's weird. I love sports, but I didn't love arm wrestling because I think they were a bunch of, I don't know, they would scream at the refs. They were disrespectful. They would scream at each other. They would do things like almost getting fights up there. And I was used to at least sportsmanship and things that were, you know, organized sports. So I didn't understand what was going on. And they'd be punching each other and slapping each other. And they got up there and I would flash them. And I'm thinking, screw you, dude. They're screaming at the refs how I cheated. And, you know, I thought this sport is so weird. So I would do it every year, but you know, it was something that I can't say it was the love of my life, but I did it because I happened to be okay at it, you know. And then I ended up winning the world championships one year, right-handed and left-handed. The year that I almost didn't go because I thought, what am I trying to prove? Like, what am I doing with my life? I'm not even an arm wrestler. I'm an actor, and I'm sitting there arm wrestling still. And then that year I won it all. And yeah, I think when I did, unfortunately for me, I felt nothing. I was like number 1. I'm up on the podium, and I felt completely empty. And I thought I felt bad because people train all year long, like 8 hours a day, to become really good, and you get up there and annihilate them without trying. It just felt not right, you know. I thought it's cool to do as a hobby, or if somebody challenges you for money because they're like saying a bunch of shit about you. I'm good with that, but you know, that was it. That's my whole arm wrestling deal, dude.
I like how you came out like a pro wrestling heel, like drawing heat from the crowd, just because you're a model. Oh,
dude, they were whistling, calling me the weirdest names, and when I'd see pictures of what I was wearing, I'm like, okay, I get it, but they were vicious because they had a bodybuilding competition and arm wrestling in the same day, so you had that whole crowd, and apparently that intro rubbed everybody the wrong way. Plus, no one knew who I was. I'm showing up for the world championships, and I'm in this turquoise mesh, you know, tank top that was so tight, and I'm like,
so basically what's in style right now is what you were wearing back then.
Hell yeah, dude. It's like hip and cool right now. Like no one would say anything, you know, and now it's accepted, where back then it seemed like people were a little more harsh about everything, you know.
How did you train? What was the training? I don't know. How do you train for arm wrestling besides do some curls and do some kickbacks, or what?
No, I you know, it's arm wrestling against people who are as good as you or better in different weight classes gets you to be stronger in a certain kind of way. And learn techniques. Like for me, for some reason they say go, I'm literally this far from pinning a guy by the time they even get the O out, because like my hit is that fast for whatever reason. It just happens to be.
You got fast twitch fiber for being an athlete.
And then you just have ligaments or tendon strength. Like, you know, I threw about 90, 91 in baseball in college, which is not bad, but it's not great. But I have these weird ligaments. So like in football, I can't lift anything. But in college, I could tackle anybody from anywhere. And I could go anywhere and take anybody down. Like no problem. Yet if you put me in a gym, I cannot lift shit. I'm like, what is wrong? Like I'm weak, you know? So lifting weights for me doesn't do anything. I mean, I'll do tons of like pull-ups and push-ups, but it's mostly practicing arm wrestling with guys, because then when you get into a match that I've gone into a match against a guy. He was like number 2 in the world, and we went 8 minutes, and I couldn't even feel my arm. And they had to break us before the finals. There were 3 of us, and we couldn't win. And they brought us back after they did the quarterfinals with everyone else, and then we went back at it. And literally, this guy and I were locked. And if you were to, I pulled my arm down to let him win because I thought, I can't even feel my arm. I go, because if we're going to go against the world champion, and I knew that guy and I knew how strong he was, I didn't have a chance. So I didn't care if I got second or third. I said, you go ahead, because he's going to kill either one of us at this point,
I want to jump a little bit into your film career and TV career. The Shield was one of the best TV shows ever made. Discuss.
Thanks, man. No, it hands down, Sean Ryan wrote a brilliant script, and he did it when he was working on Nash Bridges, and he was under Carlton Cuse, who Carlton, created Bates Motel with Carrie Aaron. He did Lost. He had done Nash Bridges and gave Sean a shot at that show. And when Sean was like just driving around San Francisco, he kind of did his own take around the time when they had the Rampart, scandal going on. So he just did a show and then pitched it to FX, and they wanted to make it. And that was something also, which is weird, is I had I don't know, man. I mean, I had a thing like 6 months prior to that Deborah Quilla was going to cast me in something. And she had only done movies up until then as a casting director. She did like The Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption and films like that. And then all of a sudden I get a call saying, she ended up casting me in that. And that was like one of the hottest scripts in Hollywood. And so they made the pilot. They didn't think they were going to pick it up because it was a little risky and it was just edgy. And I think what happened is we tested super high, and they had this guy from 90210 that starred in this lawyer thing that tested super high. And they had one tested 95, one tested 95. They had to make a choice. And I think Sean thought there's no way they're going to use him because ours just felt a little too risky and edgy. And they ended up going with it because they thought, this is our first original script on TV, and we might as well go with something. We're either going to fly or sink. And I think it was Rupert Murdoch told them, this is your choice. And they told this guy, Peter LaGuardia and Kevin Riley, who ran the network at that time, that if this doesn't go or it doesn't hit, you guys, you're pretty much done. And so they went with it anyways. In that first year, we won Golden Globes, Michael won an Emmy and SAG award, and he won a Golden Globe himself. But the show kind of changed the way people looked at television. And it was, we were being sued by the FAA every week, and we were all on the front cover of the FAA about, language content, about, just content in general. And then, we had a lot of advertisers from the Bible Belt drop out, but they stuck with their guns. Like they thought we're going to be true and authentic to what we want to put out there. And I remember Sean sticking up for what he wrote, because he goes, I'm not trying to do things for shock treatment. He goes, I'm just trying to be a storyteller and entertain. And he goes, I'm doing nothing to shock anybody. I just want to literally go down a road without monitoring what we're doing, to a degree. And so he did, and they backed him. Like they didn't give him any notes. They left him alone. And, now that network FX, is run by John Landgraf, and they've stayed true all these years later, like 19 years later, 20 years later, they're still doing these authentic shows that they let the showrunners do what they do and then get out of their way and basically let the show run itself and let the writers and the creators, pretty much say what they want to say. So that really says a lot. And yeah, it was like a docudrama, the way they shot it, and the DP came up with a way of never being on the guy who was talking and always being like a fly on the wall, catching parts of conversations. And that way, as an audience member, you just felt like you were in on a secret and being let in on every scene. And, Sean didn't want it lit well. He wanted everyone not to be good looking, kind of just look raw and authentic. And then they would just, edit it in ways that was like catching parts of a secret conversation. And it's the way it kind of played. And we didn't rehearse. We kind of marked it and then just went. Didn't know who was shooting who, when. We just went and did our stuff and trusted each other. And the show clicked. I mean, it was...
what a time for television. Between The Shield, Sopranos, The Wire. I mean, that was the revolution right there. I mean, all the shows we like and enjoy today owe a debt of thanks, I think, to shows like The Shield back at the turn of the century.
I feel like that's one of them. And yeah, I mean, The Wire, I think the guy who shot the pilot for that was Clark Johnson, and Clark Johnson shot the pilot for The Shield also. So he had a very specific, edgy kind of raw feel to what he was going after. And I think they really paved the way for everybody to, take a chance and go out there. And television is what it is now because that was the start of it. But because there was no social media, not a lot of people know that. They just think like, what is The Shield? Like, who are they? And what did they didn't have? Everyone thinks it was Breaking Bad. Like they think that they broke the barrier of everything. But that's right, because social media started popping up right around when that was like, starting to win awards and everything. So, but I think it did pave the way for a lot of what we see now. I mean, when I say FX is great, but I'm like Netflix and all these originals that people are putting a trademark on are so like twisted and dark, and these like takes on worlds and realities and the real things are the supernatural. It's so intriguing to me. I mean, where they allow television to go now,
Oh yeah. Well, let's talk about another show in the shared Shield universe. Let's talk about your life in SWAT. Like, do we have you in a rare window right now? Are your days like 12-hour shoots? Or like, what's your schedule look like for SWAT?
Because of the pandemic, they're down to 10-hour days. So we used to do like 14-hour days, and now they're down to 10 because of the COVID agreement. And then we just don't get any lunch breaks. So we kind of don't shoot with all of us in the same time, and they kind of break it up a little bit. So it's a great schedule. I mean, it's it's one of the easiest
diet too. You don't have lunch. That's why you're shredded and all jacked on the show.
Dude, whether they have lunch or not, I don't eat lunch. I'm like, I have a weird tick about I can't eat during the middle of the day when I'm working, because if I come back, I'm gonna be full. I'm gonna be lethargic. So I just drink iced coffee all day and Red Bulls and water.
Hang on. Are you a Red Bull kid too? I'll do like 6 or 8 a day. So I told you, another brother from another mother. That's it. It's done.
Shamar, Jay, and me, I think that's all we live on is those effing Red Bulls all day long. Like we don't eat. It's Red Bulls. Then you sweat out like 12 pounds a day, and you just drink that.
Please tell me, are you going with the sugar-free or the regular?
Sugar-free now.
Yes. All right. Listen, we need to work on Red Bull here for a couple sponsorships here. I think if I bought stocks, we would have been retired a long time ago.
I know, right? Sugar-free is clean, and it does the job,
There it is.
It feels clean. It's like right to the point,
Perfect. 12 ounces.
Yeah.
Kenny, you said earlier you're super picky about the parts you read for. I mean, looking at the roles you played, whether it's Dominique Luca working as Curtis on The Shield or Sons of Anarchy, whatever, you seem to have a very clear vision of who you are and what you want to be as an actor. So I guess the question is, what is your vision of yourself? How do you perceive yourself as an actor, as a commodity?
That's interesting. I really don't know. I don't really perceive myself as I know the kind of parts I like, and I know things that intrigue me, and I know because I could say it a million times over, I'm never going to get exactly what I would put out there. But if I know the kind of topics and issues and kind of character relationships within something and writing that speaks to you, it's like writing skeleton and these characters that are very different and touch on topics that normally are not discussed or out in the open. And for some reason, those are the things that speak to me. And then if it happens to be in my age range or in my energy or whatever, those are the ones that I try to find the right managers and agents to only send me those scripts. And at that point, I still don't know. And a lot of getting Bates Motel was like, going from SoA to doing a remake of Prime Suspect with Maria Bello, to that creator then writing for Carlton Cuse and Carrie Aaron on Bates Motel for that really dysfunctional character, but it delved into a world that was so twisted and dark that it intrigued me. And then it got to touch a little bit on my personal thing of my experience of what happened to me and my best friend at a very young age, and how I never have got to deal with it, and yet I could breathe through a character to kind of just understand a little bit of something and humanize the character that was a really messed up, dark character. And even though, like, let's say we were the victims at 5 years old, you know, it left so many weird scars and dysfunctions in my normal life that I've been trying to still to this day to come to terms with, just be okay as a human being about it, that it just felt like, I don't know. I mean, to me, it was creatively pretty genius. And then when they threw out the idea, I just thought, oh man, this is such a dark, twisted, awesome thing. But at the other end, I'm like, well, this guy's a monster. How do I humanize it? And then I had to just, use the creative mind to just come up with a million ways to understand why someone would get to the point of what happened. And then create your own back world from the age you were, for when you were born all the way up to where you're at, and what happened every year of the first 5 years to 10 to 15. And then if you could create something that would then maybe turn into the guy who you're playing, then that for me thought I'm breathing a truthful life to the character, and some people might hate it or like it, but I learned from Holly Hunter. I remember, trying to like do a character with her for 4 years. And anytime she would catch me trying to not go all the way into that place of being uncomfortable or dark, she would get in my face and say, you know what, screw what people think about you. You have to stay true to the character no matter what you do. You stay true and do not try to people please anybody. And so I thought, okay, I'll just dive in and people will either understand it or not understand it. But yeah, I'm not here to particularly be liked. I'm here to be authentic to what somebody wrote, and then bring humanity to it, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
I think what makes horror really interesting, and specifically Bates Motel, it's a situation where you can see it existing in the real world. There's a case to be made for monster movies and all that, but that psychological horror, that deeply disturbing, you can imagine it happening next door. That's what makes really effective horror.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Howl. Speaking of horror.
Oh, it was a twisted take on Little Red Riding Hood, and but an adult version, and a girl who's suicidal, and she's got this. She's in an institution, and she has flashbacks to when she grew up, and what happened to her, and so you end up at the end of the movie not knowing whether this is reality or not reality, and what everything she experienced was real or not real. So it's kind of a twisted psychological thriller that brings you on that journey. And my daughter got to play the young Little Red in it, and then the girl Michelle Martin, who wrote and directed it, played the older version. And they asked me to play. They offered me two roles, and one was to play her brother, which was, I was shooting at the time, so I couldn't do that. But there was a smaller role of Levi, and Levi is the alpha wolf who is the dad of this girl, Little Red Riding Hood. And he transforms from, the alpha wolf that's been protecting and watching her whole life. And she doesn't know that she came from a wolf dad that morphs into human and wolf, and then a regular major religious Christian mother who then condemned the girl when she realized that the dad was who he was. So, it's kind of weird and twisted, but it intrigues me. I mean, I can breathe in that world.
With your daughter?
Yeah, this is the third movie I've done with her. So awesome. I've done 3 movies, and then she reoccurs on S.W.A.T as the girl who's dyslexic, and so the writers took my story and applied to her, and my character Luca understands it because he had, they wrote it that I found out when I was 14, but had all the same issues. And so the creator, Sean Ryan, knew that about me for like 20 years. And he just thought, you know what, I'm going to dive into this thing with a single mom, little girl, and have Luca kind of discover it and try to help her. And that way we could address the whole dyslexia thing. And the weird thing about it is here we're on this adrenal cop show. And when they tested that season, which we got, it tested really high in a lot of places, but that was one of 2 storylines in that entire season that tested the highest, was the working with the kids that had disabilities. And I thought, how beautiful. I mean, Sean came to me, said, this was one of the highest tested things like this season. And I was like, wow. I go, what a simple thing like that touches a lot more people than and that's a pretty beautiful thing,
our world, it's obviously 1 in 5. but the rest of the world don't know how to handle us. So as cops, when you're walking onto a scene and you don't fully understand what's going through their head, and you and I can feel that we can feel what other people are going through. We can feel other pain, so you solved half the problem before you walked in there. As in real life, most cops can't do that because they're not like you and I on the dyslexic end. Yep.
That's funny you said that because, from when I was a little kid, part of my OCD was like I could feel other people's energies and feelings and they would haunt me where they would kind of get into me and I would literally morph into those people. And I thought I would see their hands and their face. It sounds so strange, but I mean, it was like I was always trying to protect myself from other people's energies because they would just shoot inside of me. And I felt like I knew everything about them and I didn't want to feel that because it was so overwhelming and it felt violating in a way. Yep. So it's funny, as I got older, I can put something up to feel okay around people. But like you say, you also have that sixth sense of, it's so weird you said that.
100%. And then, my buddy, I brought his kid a signed pennant from the Blackhawks and I'm like, hey, give it to him. He's like, how did you know he's struggling? I'm like, you don't have to tell me. I can feel it. Right. And, sure enough, he's like, you and I dyslexic and, other things going on. But my buddy looked at me like I had 10 heads. How the hell did you know that? And that's that's what we feel, and we get, people look at me with the old twisted head like, you're weird, man. Yeah, I am weird, but you know what? I'm here to help people.
I love it. That's a perfect way of putting it. Yeah, I mean, putting it is like, me and my friend Ryan Hurst, and Ryan has a lot of, I have premonitions when I'm awake and they come true to a T. People, places, things since I was 4 years old. He has them when he sleeps and they come this to a T. They come true. So we talk in a way that people look at us like we're weird and they think we're weird. But he and I totally breathe the same air and we float in these ethers and understand something where everyone's like, you guys are effing weird, man. And I'm like, it's just like, I'm like, oh man, it's just like, we're just, it is what it is. And, but that's funny you said that.
And that's why all your shows that you've done speak to me. Dexter, Law and Order, Chicago Fire, SWAT, that's, you're talking to me in a version of yourself right there by your characters.
Well, thank you. Thanks, man. I mean, some of the shows, and then, yeah, it's funny.
Well, you've also, back in the present day, comic book movies, TV shows are everywhere. You can't avoid them. Back in the 90s, Blade was one of the few movies in the genre. Blade really kind of set the tone for everything. You kind of planted your flag early with comic books. You were there for Blade. You're on Smallville. You did the Aquaman pilot. Is there a superhero role you think floating out there?
That would be cool. That would be like so dope if I could do that. I've auditioned for like one or two in big films, but they usually go with name people. So nothing's happened yet. But the Blade thing was that was awesome. That was a one-line thing that turned into the director being from England, just saying, just improvise, make it up as you go. He's just like, just say whatever you want. So I remember talking through like the first 10 minutes of that intro of the scene. I made everything up that wasn't written there. And the only thing that was written is where Tracy Lords and I were in the car and she grabs me between my legs and then says whatever she says. That was the only written thing. Everything else I made up in that thing. And so I thought, when Marvel was about to go under, that show actually, or that movie ended up starting the comeback of what Marvel was, which is wild. I would love to. I mean, again, that genre is really cool and interesting, but they've got, those guys like Hemsworth and, a lot of guys that are already huge icons, and the studios usually go with them. But would I like to do something like that? Hell yeah, man.
What would be the ideal character then? If you could pick, who would it be?
Fucking, I don't know, man. That's a loaded question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I remember auditioning for what is that Ryan Reynolds
Deadpool.
Those what is it?
Deadpool?
Deadpool. So for Brolin's role, I mean, I was up for that, but they went with Brolin, and I thought that would be an interesting character to play. I would. Yeah, I liked him. And then I was going to go into, it's a different world, but season 4, Glenn Mazzara was running, Walking Dead. Frank Darabont's had just gotten fired. And so Mazzara took over. In season 4, I was going to come on as one of their new characters that were in the comic books. And I was really pumped for that. And then they got rid of him literally before they came back and thought, well, we don't need anybody show running now. It's doing like 17 million viewers a week, so we can self-run it ourselves. And it kind of floored him. And so when he exited, my character exited, and that was going to be my jump into that world, but it didn't quite happen. So
I know your time is valuable. We're these 10-hour days, drinking nice coffee and Red Bull, and obviously appreciate it. I got one last question. Would you have any interest in being a part of my foundation, in U.S., in Canada, around the world, to continue to inspire dyslexics, to advocate for them and be there to support them? Would you have any interest to furthering that conversation?
100%, dude.
Beautiful.
100%. I always want to help, but I don't know who to even talk to help. So the fact that, I was like lucky enough to come on here and probably babble through my stuff, because I talk a lot when I get nervous. So, I would love to help in any way I could.
Well,
love to be an advocate.
First off, you didn't babble. I understood everything, to a T of what you were saying. Okay. It's like I said, I joke about it, brother from another mother, but I understand everything you're saying. So you're definitely not babbling. It was an honor to be on here, take an hour of your time, and listen to your story and connect in a way that I've never connected with anybody else. So I couldn't be thankful. James?
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good. I'll stop recording now.